You're watching Radioactive Interviews right here on YouTube. My name is Victoria. With me right now, I got Chris and Sam from Funeral Lakes. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you guys on the show today. To be honest, I don't know too much about you guys, so let's just start there. Can you tell me a little bit about Funeral Lakes and what kind of music you guys play and kind of what kind of bands inspire your sound?
For sure, yeah. So we put out our first record in 2019, and this is our now second EP we've put out. It's called Redeemer. Put it out about a month ago. Our sound's kind of like, I guess indie rock is like the most generic term, but we like incorporate a lot of like dream pop and shoegaze sounds into our work. So like that more kind of ethereal sort of soundscape guitar work. We get compared to bands like Arcade Fire,
Hmm.
sort of a big sound and sort of dynamic vocal work between the two of us.
And like you had mentioned, you guys had just released your new EP, Redeemer. What was it like to record this album?
So we recorded this EP just at home in our apartment during the winter months. So it was a pretty isolated experience compared to our last EP where we were actually in a studio space with a couple of friends. So yeah, it was a bit different, but yeah, I think it contributed to the sound of the EP, which is a little bit darker and colder, and we're kind of happy with how it turned out.
And which song did you find was the hardest to write?
Um, I think the
Or were they all
last,
pretty easy?
well, I guess like the opening track Solstice, we've had that song for like 5 years or so, kind of like kicking around in different iterations. So I guess like in terms of time, like that kind of took a long time to get sounding the way we wanted. And then the last track, there's got to be something better soon. I feel like that one, like lyrically, we spent a lot of time working and reworking and trying to get right. But it's also like the most stripped down song on the record. It's just an acoustic guitar and some electric guitar. So it ended up being much like smaller than it originally was so it's supposed to be.
I think once we started recording them, we kind of had like a theme in mind and like a cohesive atmosphere. So it ended up coming together pretty quickly once we got started.
And out of all the songs, which one is your favorite track?
Yeah, it's tough to decide. I think I'd probably pick Solstice, the opening track, just because it's got kind of a different energy and sets the tone for the whole EP.
Hmm.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and going back to your older album that you guys released in September of 2020, Golden Season, did the writing process differ when you wrote that album compared to the Redeemer one, or was it pretty much the same?
I feel like the writing process was pretty much the same.
Yeah, over a longer period of
Yeah.
time. And then recording took much longer. Like we were just
Mm.
teaching ourselves kind of as we went with that first record, and um, kind of like a lot of trial and error stuff. So with every record, we produced it ourselves and kind of learned some new tricks and have friends help us out. So it's nice in that sense, but yeah, took a little bit longer, I guess.
And you had mentioned like learning some new tricks along the way. What are some of those?
We use a software called Ableton, so it's like pretty user friendly. But I feel like what helps us the most is like YouTube tutorials, and is like googling things. I think something that we've kind of gotten better at is like our use of reverb. Like our first record, we really just kind of saturated everything like full on. Whereas I think with this last record, we kind of used it more intentionally, like kind of learned how to apply it and let certain instruments kick through without any. Yeah, so I think like finding balance between the instruments and sort of interplay is something that I've gotten better at.
And you guys are kind of a newer band, kind of up and coming. So musicians know better than anyone else that's hard to make it in the industry. It takes a lot of drive and a lot of luck. So if you could change anything about the music industry, what would you want to change?
I don't know. I think there's sort of like this mentality that like you need to have support and like backing to kind of put your work out there and be heard. But I think what we found is like you can kind of push and promote yourself and find out how to do things through the internet a lot of the time. So there's this sort of like gatekeeping in the industry, right? Where it's like, oh, you need a PR person, you need a radio plugger, all these different services that cost artists money. When if you kind of Google how to do it, you can kind of, walk yourself through the process and maybe give it a shot. So I feel like kind of being like self-starters has been something that we've done that I think we've had some success in, whereas the industry kind of tells you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I think I would just add like there's a pretty huge learning curve around things like licensing and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, it would be great if there was like more supports available for artists.
Totally. Yeah. Navigating like SOCAN
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And like right now in 2020, there's so many social media platforms to promote your music on. Just how useful is that tool to you guys?
Yeah, I would say it's been really useful to us. I mean, we have nothing to compare it to. I mean, yeah, like we got started kind of developing our presence on Instagram mostly and like Twitter. And yeah, it's allowed us to connect with a lot of different folks from across a huge geographic region. So I think in that sense, it's been really cool.
Yeah. Like with our first release, we had a hard time like getting a show, but there was people writing about us in like different countries. So it was pretty cool, like just to have an audience outside of like your own community. Um, and when we kind of got some traction and started playing shows in Toronto, that was really awesome. And then the pandemic hit shortly after. We had lined up, like a summer of some slots and that sort of thing. So I feel like because of that, we've had to like really shift to being an online band and sort of being like a project that's not so much a live band. So yeah, I mean, the internet's really useful and helpful for that.
And I was like asking this next question because I always find it interesting. How did you guys get into music and kind of at what age?
Yeah, I started playing piano when I was a kid. I didn't really take lessons, but I was kind of like teaching myself whenever I could. My older brothers had a guitar, so I started teaching myself on that, like watching lots of YouTube tutorials. Yeah, and then kind of in high school, I started getting more interested in like playing like solo performances, just like at my school talent show, stuff like that. Um, yeah, and then it wasn't really until I was in university when Chris and I got together and started playing together as a duo, and that sort of opened up different doors for us musically.
I guess my first instrument was the drums. I started playing like in school concert band and I think it's grade 7. That was fun. I liked playing drums a lot. And then my brother taught me like how to play a power chord guitar, and that sort of like opened up my world. That was awesome. I was really into like punk rock when I was younger, and um, that really like kind of was how I first approached music and played like in a garage band and that sort of thing. And then just played in some groups sort of through university, and then yeah, this is probably sort of the most like serious project we've approached.
Right. And when you guys are writing music, kind of where or like what kind of bands do you pull inspiration from? Would you say like Arcade Fire and bands like that, or are there some other influences?
Yeah, they're a big one. The other two bands that like when we first got together were talking about a lot and listening to a lot. This band called Saint Seneca from Ohio. They're awesome, and Typhoon from Oregon. Again, sort of two outfits that have like this really massive sound and play with atmosphere a lot. So I think we take a lot of inspiration from those acts.
Yeah, I think lyrically as well, like we both really like Conor Oberst. I think we draw a lot of like storytelling techniques from folk music too.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely like a big range of inspirations.
Yeah, we kind of tried to like shove all of our inspiration into our music, so it's kind of all over the place sometimes, but I think we like it that way.
Yeah. And for the rest of this year, do you guys have any plans and goals? Like, are you going to be recording some more music or releasing or touring? Kind of, what's your plan?
Yeah, so we're working on a record right now, just sort of in the writing demo phase of it. And then hopefully maybe next summer, sort of September, we'll have it all done and ready to put out. So that's kind of been been our main focus at the moment.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for doing an interview today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.